Guys, we move on to Sweden, where hip-hop artist A$AP Rocky and two of his friends have been detained in a Swedish prison since July 2nd. Lots of people in Hollywood and Congress are calling for his release, even a movement with a petition of over 600,000 signatures. So I have Mike Muse with me here because we want to discuss this. I'm going to give people like the background on this story. The arrest came after a fight broke out in the streets of Stockholm. TMZ released a video showing A$AP and two of his friends beating a guy up. But before he was detained, A$AP Rocky posted two videos on Instagram that showed what happened right before, where the same guy was following them around and wouldn't leave them alone, even hitting A$AP's bodyguard with his headphones. And you heard A$AP in the video telling the guy that he doesn't want any trouble, but A$AP was arrested on aggravated assault. So, you know, this seems a bit extreme for this fight. He's still in prison since the beginning of July. Yeah,
it's really interesting, Kimberly, and even today, the Sweden prosecutors made an announcement that he's still going to be held for an additional period of time as they continue this investigation. And let's just state the facts from the Swedish perspective. The Swedish perspective is they don't have a bail system in place for them. And their perspective is that he has been treated fairly. So I want to make sure that we put it out there in regards to that. And they also say they are holding him because of one of the sentiments of a flight risk. And so they usually say this is not unusual for any foreigner to still be held for a certain amount of time due to the ability for them for a flight risk. With that being said, though, there's also a lot of inconsistencies that have come up with this story. In particular, the Geneva Convention, which states that any time a foreigner is arrested, they have to be notified immediately. The home country has to be notified immediately. They weren't notified immediately. And then when diplomats went to actually go check in on A$AP Rocky, they weren't allowed to see him initially. And then when they were allowed to finally see him, they weren't allowed to meet in private with him. So there's been a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to this, and on the fact that we must state that he came in voluntarily, right? Because of the fact that he wanted to be proactive with this. So the challenge that makes it so difficult is you go in proactively, and then you get arrested by coming in proactively, and I can't understand why the prolonged amount of time when the videos clearly show an example of them being harassed for an extended period of time. And they were antagonized. And one would say it's an act of self-defense. If someone's antagonizing you and really probing at you a certain amount of time, and then attacks your bodyguard, they attack first. The evidence is clear. I can understand there's no bail system, maybe a week at the most. But for this extended amount of time, something else is happening within the diplomatic system.
Well, many would say, and many have said on Twitter, that this may have happened because his crew was black.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of the story, which is interesting, the narrative that we've been having all week with racism in America. Racism in America racism isn't just restricted to the United States of America. The world, in particular Europe, has had a very complicated system with race, from past to present, and hopefully not more into the future, but here we are in the present with the migrants, right, and migrant communities within European countries. There is still a tension that exists there. And so there is this notion of racism goes outside the boundaries of the United States of America, but then you look at it in terms of black Americans, right? You want to be able to feel safe and feel comfortable when you go abroad. And so now there is this new dynamic of where can we be safe, right? Where we won't be discriminated against.
Some people are still a bit upset about his comments on Ferguson, where he said he didn't want to be political, and now he's in this situation potentially because of his race.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Because a lot of times, a lot of individuals, even think about O.J. Simpson, his famous words were, "I'm not black, I'm O.J.," right? There is this sentiment sometimes that when you are successful and you make it, that you are become exempt from racism, that you come from exempt from the law, or you become exempt from discrimination. But time and time, history has showed us that no matter, as a black American or a person of color, no matter how educated you are, no matter how many degrees that you have, no matter how much money that you own, that you have, no matter where you live or your zip code, your skin and the color and your religion is not removed. You're always seen as that. And so there isn't no exemption, right? There is no exception, unfortunately. And that's the inequities of our criminal justice system that we see here right now, is where we see privilege being played out based upon your finances or your family circumstance or educational background, which is really interesting that somehow we keep getting caught up in Kim Kardashian has had some type of interference when it comes to this. And she sent out a tweet yesterday really thanking the president and Jared Kushner on their behalf of working for ASAP Rocky and for criminal justice reform. But I've yet to see her get to that root cause of racism and inequality that has been existent. From our sentiments from our president, talk about go back to your home countries, in order to address criminal justice reform, one has to address the racism that is associated with it and the rhetoric from our elected officials.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.